Who are you? I'm your new segment. The film Avenger? So, which film do you want to tackle first?
Paddington.
I don't know if I have enough evidence to avenge Paddington. Perhaps I could be of some assistance.
That movie sucks.
I haven't heard of that movie.
That movie was okay.
Superhero by day, film critic by night, the film Avenger will fight a film's right. Great films are forgotten, and some are called rotten, so he'll seek to prove that they are quite awesome.
Are you sure about Paddington? Yeah. You've seen Paddington, haven't you? Well, yeah. Maybe. Maybe it's been a while. Why don't we watch the film and then we'll do the review? In fact, why don't we go see Paddington 2 and make it a double review? That could be intriguing.
I second the motion.
We still haven't figured out who this guy is. Well, let's let him come anyway. Besides, he does seem awfully familiar. Sure. We'll just let a complete stranger come with us. Well, I hardly know you either.
Oh, I think you'll find we know each other better than you think.
Let's just go to the movie. Don't forget, we're watching the first one too. Well, I have to admit, I was wrong. Both Paddington films are worth seeing. But I'm still curious, why did you want to start with Paddington? Well, like our new friend over here said, there's some people I've talked to that they don't like the film and they never really have a reason why, and it's just mind-boggling to me. I know everybody has their own opinion, and they should, but at the same time, it just astounds me how anyone could not like this film. It's so sweet, it's charming, it's delightful, the characters are great, and for someone who grew up with the character, it's refreshing to see that the filmmakers took the character with respect.
You said you grew up with Paddington. Tell us more about that.
When I was a kid, the Disney Channel had an early morning program called The Lunchbox, which was a bunch of shorts based off of classic characters like Curious George, Spot, and the Tales of Beatrice Potter. And Paddington was one of those shorts. Yes, it was the stop-motion Paddington with the people that were paper cutouts. So I was familiar with who Paddington was, what he looked like with the hat and the blue coat, and he liked marmalade. He loved marmalade, and he often got into trouble, similar to Curious George. Another character from the Lunchbox. Yes, but Paddington is originally based off a series of books by Michael Bond about a bear in Peru, deepest, darkest Peru. Yes, deepest, darkest Peru, who travels to London at Paddington Station. Yes, Paddington Bear, Paddington Station, there is that connection, where he meets the Brown family, and that is where his adventures begin. This is also where the first film begins. Don't forget about the opening in Peru. At the beginning of the first film, there's this newsreel about this explorer who traveled to Peru and ended up befriending these bears, who we later learn are Paddington's Uncle Pastuzio, I think I said that right, and Aunt Lucy. And Paddington goes off to London to find the explorer, where he meets the Brown family. Sound familiar? Now, let's talk about the characters. First we have the Brown family. Mr. Brown, played by Hugh Bonneville, is a very straight-collared man and he wants to make sure that his family's safe and all of that stuff, and so he has a good heart, he has good intentions, he's very more of the practical-minded side, but his kids find him kind of boring. But in his backstory, we get to learn that he used to have a more wild side. And as the film goes along, he gets more adventurous. Mrs. Brown is played by Sally Hawkins, who is just so sweet and loving, and this is a person you would just love to meet. She is just so warm-hearted. I adore Mrs. Brown. She is just wonderful, and she wants her family to be a family and just do stuff together and be close, and it's just so sweet. And then, but she's concerned about Paddington. She cares about Paddington, and she wants to make sure that Paddington finds a home. And I love Mrs. Brown. She's wonderful. Their children are Judy and Jonathan. Judy, as Paddington puts it, suffers from embarrassment. She doesn't want to be embarrassed. She's just started a new school, and doesn't want people to think that she's weird or anything like that. Now, Jonathan, he's more of he wants to have fun. He's a kid, and he wants to be a kid, but Mr. Brown's a little bit more strict with him. He only lets him play with educational toys and wants to make sure that he stays out of trouble. And Jonathan's a little bit more taken with Paddington than Judy is. Mrs. Bird is played by Mrs. Weasley herself, Julia Walters. Mrs. Bird takes care of the house, does the cleaning, the cooking, vacuuming, stuff like that. But she also has a zany side, like when she refers to the microwave and it's like, I still don't trust you. It's little things like that that are funny. But she also, at different points in the movie, she's the voice of reason. She's the one that tells Mr. Brown, that bear needs this family as much as this family needs that bear. And Mrs. Bird is lovely as well, and a really fun addition. Mr. Curry is played by the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi. Mr. Curry doesn't like the idea of the bear in the neighborhood. He doesn't think it's a good idea, and he actually ends up helping the villain, played by Nicole Kidman. Now, he doesn't really know her intentions. He's helping. It's like, oh, we need to get rid of that bear. Like, you want to get rid of the bear. All right, I'll help you. And he has a crush on her. She wants to have Paddington stuffed and on display at the Museum of Natural History. The villain is a little over the top, but she does have some fun with it. Then there's Paddington, who is a delight, an absolute delight. He is so much fun to watch, and he's got this gentle, innocent nature to him, but he doesn't always have the best of manners. And it's not so much that he's rude, it's just that he doesn't know it's not polite. Such as he'll take the teapot and drink from the teapot, things like that. There is an innocence about him. He's come from another place, so it's a fish out of water, or should I say, bear out of the jungle story. The manners he does have, though, he is a very well-mannered bear, and he's constantly talking about how his Aunt Lucy taught him out how to be. And so he does have some manners. Then there's the whimsical side of the movie, such as when Paddington is writing a letter to his Aunt Lucy talking about the Brown family, and you see this dollhouse open up and it becomes the Brown's house. And then you see the rooms from their house, and you see the characters inside the rooms, and just stuff like that is just, it's a fun little touch. And the setups. There's a lot of great setups as well. Things like Paddington has a sandwich under his hat, which Uncle Perstuzio taught him. It's like, a small bear carries a sandwich under his hat. And so Paddington carries a marmalade sandwich underneath his hat. And at one point, he gives a little bit of that sandwich to some pigeons. And then some more pigeons come. And that's a running gag throughout the film, with the pigeons wanting the sandwich. And it actually leads up to a really great payoff near the end of the film. And every character, all of the Brown family, they have their little moments of things that are set up that later pay off in the film, that you have these payoffs. And it's really fun to see these things with that. And Paddington has other setups and payoffs. For those of you who have not seen the film, keep an eye out for the vacuum. Okay? You got little dustbusters that Mrs. Bird uses, and there's a really great setup and payoff with those. And this film is just so much fun.
So why do you think some people don't like Paddington?
Paddington is well known in the UK, but he may not be as a known character outside of that, so people aren't as familiar with him. We also, in this day and age, we have a lot of fast-paced kids' films, and so this may seem a little bit slower than other films. But really, if you just watch this film and let this bear charm you.
Now let's talk about Paddington 2.
And since Paddington 2 is still in theaters, this will be a spoiler-free review. How come you haven't said anything?
Yeah, go on. We're doing fine.
A couple months before the film came out, I remember reading a synopsis about Paddington 2 that said that it was about Paddington finding a birthday present for his Aunt Lucy. And I thought, that sounds more like an episode from the Paddington TV show I used to watch as a kid. And I was concerned. I'm like, is this going to work for a full movie? But that is just the jump start of the story that leads into bigger events happening.
Like Paddington getting arrested.
Hey, that's too much of a spoiler.
It was in the trailer.
I know, but I was actually upset that they gave that information away in the trailer. But in all honesty, since it'll be a lot easier to talk about the film with that because it's such a big part of the film.
Let's talk about the beginning of the film.
At the beginning of the film, Paddington has adjusted to his new life, and not only has his positive attitude affected the Brown family, but he's also made an impact on his neighbors' lives as well, such as reminding one of the neighbors not to forget his keys every morning. And there's another neighbor who he always has a marmalade sandwich for every morning, just little things like that. And we get to see where the Brown family are now. Mr. Brown is going through a midlife crisis, and Judy and Jonathan have actually kind of switched roles, whereas in the first film, Judy didn't want to be embarrassed. Jonathan doesn't want to be uncool, which I love because it makes so much sense that a teenage girl, wouldn't want to be embarrassed, and a teenage boy wouldn't want to be seen as uncool. And it also creates a great arc for Jonathan's character that we get to see happening in the film.
And speaking of character, Hugh Grant is great as Phoenix Buchanan, an actor whose career isn't what it used to be.
He is just so much fun to watch in this film, and he's actually the reason why Paddington gets arrested, because he steals this book, which is the book that Paddington is trying to save to get his aunt for her birthday, because it's this rare pop-up book of London, and Phoenix steals it, and Paddington is trying to stop him. You get to see a chase where Paddington rides a dog. That was a fun scene. And then Paddington gets caught, and they think that Paddington stole the book, and so he ends up in jail.
Poor bear.
When Paddington's in jail, it has like other films where you've got like the inmates, and they're like, rough and yeah, this is going to be a hard life for Paddington to adjust to. But then his attitude affects them as well, including Brandon Gleeson's character, Knuckles, who is the prison cook. And my favorite scene in the film is when Paddington is showing Knuckles how to make marmalade. It is just a delight. It's so much fun. And then, of course, you have the Browns going, like, you know what? I don't want to say too much more of the film.
So what are your final thoughts on Paddington 2?
This is just a fun film, and it does get silly at times. Okay, but there's a difference in a movie when something is silly and something's stupid. Okay, stupid is stupid unless it's so stupid it's funny, and then silly can be a lot of fun. This is more of it has its silly moments, but just embrace the silliness. You're going to have a good time at this film. Paddington 2 is just, Paddington has done it again.
So is that the Pope's perspective?
Yeah, it is.
You sure didn't say much.
There never was a need.
And we still haven't figured out who this guy is.
Haven't you figured that out already? I'm you.
What?
We are but one and the same. We represent but different parts of the same individual.
So that's why we didn't have to pay for more movie tickets. And we had a gift card.
And it does explain...
That couldn't be true. I would never reveal my secret identity.
You already did in the introduction.
Then why are the two of you still here?
Because it's one of your abilities to shift between one or more personalities.
How do you know that?
You already know the answer to that.
Hey, don't start that again.
We represent but different parts of our personalities. Or it's just an excuse to play more characters. That too.
So what's your purpose then?
My purpose was to help you decide on what film to review. And it's similar to Phoenix Buchanan in the film, where he becomes the different characters he's played and has a conversation with them.
But he's the villain!
It doesn't make you the villain, or even crazy. Just having fun.
I could live with that.
Then my work here is done. Thanks for joining us on this first installment for the film Avenger.
Hey, that's my line!
Join us next time. Maybe you'll see more of us. Maybe you'll see less.
And we hope you give these films another look.